Hey everybody, this is Jason Roggasch. I wanted to make a quick video. Well, it's not going to be quick, but it's going to be a video about the Virginia shooting, and this is more about the comments that have come in on the video that I made about the Virginia shooting not being a hoax. These are just some things some general overviews of the questions that I'm getting, and these are this is just the answers to them. Instead of, I'm kind of tired of individually answering people because a lot of people just ask the same questions over and over again. So, and plus this goes to all hoaxes. This little list I'm about to read, there's about 10 points I want to make, and I'm going to breeze through them really quickly. I'll try to numerically number them, and if you want to counter them, feel free. If not, I think these are logical. I think these make sense, and I think these are kind of what people always allude to when they're asking me about the individual detail of the hoax. People always want you to take apart media. People want you to take apart video. People want you to disprove people saying something is a hoax, and I'm going to go through the reason why I think you can't. Some of those things are just inaccurate. So, and again, thank you for all the comments that I've gotten on the video. Number 1, not trusting the media isn't proof of anything. If anything, you should take nothing they say or do or show as evidence or proof of anything if you don't trust them, even to show they are lying. I mean, if they can't be trusted, they can't be trusted, right? Either way. Number 2, video analysis. Video analysis from the media is not the original source, but already edited video in most cases. Video gets edited by media and goes through their software and processes, producers, editors, etc. So what are you really analyzing? Second, third-hand video that's incomplete at best and has been heavily edited in many cases. Scale of the hoax. Scale of the hoax would be enormous. From crisis actors who have to disappear forever to directors, producers, cameramen, etc., etc., etc. And none are ever around again. No one ever comes out. No one has ever come out. Ever. No one has ever said, hey, I'm involved, even anonymously. And in the time of social media, when it's easy to just post a video up in 5 minutes, it would be very easy for one of these crisis actors or somebody that knows one of these crisis actors or grew up with them or something of that nature to come out and say, hey, this is BS, I know this, da-da-da-da-da. You never see that in any of the hoaxes. And I'm just saying, that's something to look at. Number 4. Then there is the media complicity on a large scale. This goes into the last one. Directors, producers, writers in the media side. On-air talent, etc., which maybe the on-air talent wouldn't have to know, they're just figureheads, but still, would all have to be quiet and never say anything, even anonymously. Again, this isn't the 1980s or 90s even. This is where the internet exists, social media. You could come out anonymously and put out a huge video, and no one could ever trace you again. You could do it at a library, like I made point. Buy a burner cell phone, whatever. And no insiders at all have ever come out from the media. Not one. No one. No one. I think that's something else to look at. No insiders are coming out. Number 5, family, friends, associates, neighbors of these actors never come forward. This is what I was just speaking of. They never say, I know so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. He's married, she's dead, she's not, he's dead, he's not, blah, blah, blah. None of that ever happens. No one. And again, if I was making this argument in the 90s or in the 80s, even the early 90s before the internet and social media, I could understand the arguments, but there is no argument. You could do this anonymously and come out and say, I know so-and-so, show pictures, and blow everything up. But no one ever does it. Number 6, and this is a crucial one. Number 6, grief analysis. If you are going to analyze the way people grieve, you should know more than the Kubler-Ross model. You should look into the other books and studies that have shown people and the way they grieve in a different way. Sophia Smallstorm did a disservice and lied when she said, quote, everyone grieves basically the same. She either didn't know the studies or has an agenda. Concerning Sandy Hook, you decide. I call it, for lack of a better term, get over it. And I consider myself to be one of those people. I don't cry. We all know people who don't cry, who don't blubber, who don't lose their minds, they just move forward. I mean, I've lost friends, family, animals, etc., pets, beloved things, and I just move forward. I don't break down and cry and go into a ball. I don't get depressed. I don't do any of that shit. And I mean, I can't imagine losing a child, but again, at the same time, there is more out there than the Kubler-Ross grief stages. There has been extensive studies done, and I suggest you Google it before you decide how someone grieves is incorrect and is suspect. When did the hoaxes start? Number 7. When did the hoaxes start? When was the first public shooting? In the 1960s, late 60s, 70s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s? When were the hoaxes begin? When did this plan to get your guns, this elaborate plan, when was it put into motion? There was always been shootings. There's always been public shootings. Since there has been America and it's been filmed. People have taken over news studios, local news studios. People have shot people on air. People have done all kinds of crazy shit. You can watch this in just the movie, if you just want to, that we've all probably seen in Bowling for Columbine. He shows a bunch of people being shot. That's public. And you can watch them on YouTube too. So well before cable news existed, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. Now, here's what somebody said to me the other day. Someone said to me that they're speeding up the hoaxes. They are coming faster and faster to reach a climax to get the final result, which is gun control, which is a fascist takeover, a Zionist takeover, whatever takeover it may be. Now, here's the deal with that. Rather than they're speeding up the hoaxes, and there seems to be more hoaxes, quote unquote, and more shootings, quote unquote, could it be that there is more media? Therefore, more of these events are being covered way more, like in way more detail. And that, in fact, there have always been filmed public shootings that the media has shown. But there wasn't 100 channels. There were just 3 or 4. And frankly, cable only really came into the American mass to be affordable and wide-reaching in the mid-'80s. Cable news cable news came in only about 25 years ago. That's it. So were all the hoaxes before cable news came out, were they not hoaxes? And did they all just start with cable news? Because that's where all the video from these people that they get their hoaxes from is from cable news. Cable news and network television news. But cable news, essentially. They rush to be first, cable news does. Any news source does. The competition to get ratings, they have 3, 4, 5 24-hour news stations. 3 24-hour news stations that, all the time. They've got to find filler, and they've got to be first, and they got to sensationalize it. And these things seem to be more, but in fact, they're just being covered more. And it's because there's more media to cover them, and more aggressively, and they get things wrong. And they're having to constantly compete with other channels and the internet. And so they're reporting, and we all can say this on things that aren't even important. Even on unimportant issues, their reporting is sloppy and just, frankly, sometimes inaccurate, trying to be first. And don't forget, if it bleeds, it leads. We all know that. We've all heard it. And how do you get the story, really, from 5-minute segments on Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity? Which is where people tend to get this information from. There's no real detail in it because you get it from the written word. And that's one of the things I wanted to say. People need to use the written word too. And that doesn't come right off the bat. It comes later on after the event. It comes from other investigations. It comes from independent journalism. Sometimes it comes from mainstream journalism sometimes. But the written word is very important. And I would suggest people not only analyze hoax, video, but they also go read stuff a year after the event and get some of the backstory and information then when everything has been sussed out. Okay, number 9. And I'm almost done here, folks. Pattern recognition. We are pattern recognition machines. We try to recognize patterns in landscape. We recognize patterns in speech. We recognize patterns in when we read books. We recognize patterns when we're driving. We recognize patterns constantly. Been proven over and over again. Human beings are pattern recognition machines. And people, when they see these shootings and they see how they are done and they have already an idea in their head that gun control is the inevitable agenda of all of this, then they're going to start recognizing patterns. And they're going to start making patterns out of these shootings when maybe they aren't patterns. Maybe they're individual cases of shootings in a country that has more guns than any other country does. But we are pattern-seeking machines. And that has been shown over and over again with the way our brains work. And I think sometimes with these shootings, they're shootings, they're on the media, and people don't trust the government, and they expect gun control. So they're looking for patterns, and those patterns then manifest themselves in these videos. Number, I think 8 here. What are we, 8 or 9 here? And this is the end of this. I'm going to leave you with this. This rush to judgment is so speculative in nature, it really should be looked at as art or entertainment, not science or fact, because that's what it has evolved into. Art and entertainment. There is no science to this. There is no reason in a lot of ways. There is no contradictory opinion that will ever be accepted because the people who advocate this are so goddamned paranoid. They have a very, 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 very simple understanding of the world. And that's fine to a point, but it becomes a nuisance to people who are actually fucking serious about trying to really find out psychologically why things are going on in our society. Look inward and look outward with the notion that you're trying to figure out how other people do what they do and why they do what they do. And like I said, some of the points I've made here, I believe are absolutely what is going on in the hoax community. And I would hope that people, if they listen to this, if they have to listen to the video 2 or 3 more times, if they don't want to listen to it all, I don't care. But these are the reasons I think people, those reasons I just pointed out, those 9 or so reasons are the reasons I think that people are, these people, other than, and throw in a good old-fashioned dose of paranoia, are looking for hoaxes and everything, and that's why this hoax thing has exploded. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great day. Just as a quick PS, I also think people, there's an element of emotion that goes along with these shootings. People are, there's a sadness to think that 26 people, I mean, that's, if you're a hoax advocate, you'll say, well, Jason, that's the whole point, is to make people sad and da-da-da. But I think there's also an element in the hoax community that doesn't want to believe these things are real, because who wants to believe these people are dead or they died the way they did, or they had to go through what they had to go through, being shot or being, you know, whatever, being vulnerable like that. And I think there's an emotional issue there psychologically with some of these hoax advocates. You can look at it as conspiratorial, or you can look at it as fear-based. And I think that's the end game, right? I mean, if you're a hoax advocate, it's to scare you into giving up gun control and mental health and all of that, those issues that are coming up, the mental health issues and so forth. As if there aren't mentally ill people in our society, as if our society doesn't drive you to be mentally ill, but that's another side issue. But I think there's a grief issue, and I think that's another reason why people advocate these hoaxes. I think this is a form of grief. Nobody wants to believe that people die like this. Nobody wants to believe that somebody could be shot in public, or could be shot while they're at school, or their children could be shot at school, or their friends could be shot at school. There's a real psychological element to that I think the hoax advocates, people need to look into. Also, I think religion has a lot to do with this. I think the people that believe that all of these things are hoaxes, they believe these things are plans, they believe that they're organized, are usually very religious people. They believe Satan. They believe in that. I mean, I've been called everything from a Satanist to a Jew to a Zionist and all that. And I think there's so much religion to it. These people tend to believe in the paranormal. They tend to just take everything for face value instead of actually looking into what they're looking at. I think in the hoax community, and I'm going to say this to all of you, and this is not going to be popular, but it's very, very true. Alcohol and drugs, but alcohol particularly, really, really, really makes you cloud your vision. I don't care who the fuck you are. Alcohol does not make you smarter. It doesn't make you better. It makes you dumber. You feel better, but it cuts off oxygen to your brain. You don't think as clearly. And when you abuse alcohol and then make videos and troll around and do hangouts together and you're drunk, I find that to be, I find alcohol fuels the hoax community very, very much. I mean, I think it really does. And I think that's something to be looked into. And I'm sorry if that pisses people off. And maybe even people that like me or people that drink and say, what difference does it make if I'm drunk? Well, it does make a difference. It makes a difference to me. It makes a difference to you. It makes a difference to the message. It clouds everything. Alcohol is a fucking depressant. Alcohol is a nasty fuck. I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm not talking about getting stoned. I'm talking about being drunk. Alcohol is a motherfucker, and it fucks with your brain, and it's not good for you. It doesn't make you smarter. It doesn't make you more charming. It doesn't get you, it makes you less nervous. That's what it does, and it cuts off oxygen in your brain. So again, I think that has a lot to do with it in the host community. Thank you for listening very much, and again, comment below if you want to. If not, whatevs.